Clearly, something's not working. If you're not where you want to be, if you don't have your dream life or your dream physique, your actions haven't led you to that yet. Lately, that's exactly how I've been feeling. So I've made some pretty big life changes that's been getting me leaner, making me happier, and way more productive. The first one is practicing gratitude. If you're constantly a downer and only focusing on negatives, then that is all you're going to focus on. I get it. I get like that sometimes. My mind goes straight towards playing the victim. Sometimes I'll just think that life isn't going my way, that I'm just down on my luck. But if you're able to move past that and really only focus on the positives, you are going to be significantly happier. In fact, I've actually noticed that this way of thinking has led me to be extremely unproductive and lazy. In fact, I actually have a funny story. A few weeks ago, I popped my tire and I was so upset, but out of nowhere, my brain just switched. And I thought, if the worst thing that happens to me today is the fact that my tire blew out on a car that I'm already blessed to have in a city that I've always wanted to live in, then how dare I complain? Literally, pretty much in an instant, I was able to turn a situation that honestly really upset me into a situation that I thought wasn't that bad. Another major decision that you can make for your life is getting in better shape. I've always been a relatively active person. A lot of times, I am not locked in on my diet. So despite me doing tons of exercise, I feel like my physique was not reflecting that. And of course, at this point, we should all know that you just can't outwork a bad diet. So despite me doing a ton of exercise, I still felt out of shape and I just didn't like my physique. So I made the decision to start eating cleaner. And not only has this been getting me leaner, but it's also just made my day-to-day life feel so much better. Eating the right foods is gonna give you way more energy, gonna make you feel so much better throughout the day. It's even gonna improve your sleep, and it's simple decisions. Instead of going out to eat, just make food at home. But if you are like me and you constantly struggle with always wanting something sweet, or instead of craving something a little bit more savory like a burger, you don't have to completely eliminate that from your diet, but you also don't need something like this every single day. So when it comes to eating out or eating something unhealthy, I still do it, but I really save it on occasion. If I'm going out with friends, then yes, I am absolutely gonna enjoy an In-N-Out burger, which even saying it right now sounds so good. But on my normal day-to-day, I stick to the basics. It's a lot easier when you have routines. For example, having certain times that you eat and you know exactly what you're gonna eat. It makes it a lot easier to build a routine around this, so that way you're not as tempted to just binge out on a bunch of junk food, which is also another problem that I was really facing, is I wouldn't eat until 1 or 2 p.m. And at that point, since I was so hungry, I didn't feel like cooking. And at that point, I would resort to DoorDashing unhealthy food or getting something quick that was actually unhealthy. Like I said, your diet, this is pretty much a decision. You could decide what to eat. You could decide when to eat. This way, you're staying healthy. Again, you're probably gonna be leaner, whether you're losing weight or gaining muscle. I would say the best advice I can give you is start having a better relationship with food. This makes dieting so much easier, especially when you're enjoying foods that are also way healthier. Like I said, for the longest, I was just really unhappy with the way I was looking. I really noticed it on my face or whenever I was working out. I was less vascular. I didn't like how I looked in compression shirts. And although right now I'm still in the process of getting leaner, so I'm nowhere near where I want to be, but it is a good feeling knowing that week by week, I am getting closer to that. So focusing on my diet has definitely been one of the best decisions I've made recently. The next thing is consistency. Tom Brady has a quote saying that you don't have to be special, but you do have to be what most people aren't, and that is consistent. Most people, whenever they want to start something, whether it's a diet or a business or just locking in on something in general, they only do this for a few days, maybe a few weeks. Some people are actually lucky to go a few months, but to make some real life-changing moves, it's gonna take more than a few months. So don't be discouraged that you're not getting any quick results, but instead fall in love with the process. Being consistent for a full year is way more beneficial than working 10, 12 hours a day for a month. One guy on social media that I've been really into is Higher Up Wellness. One of my favorite quotes from him is stop looking at things as being consistent, but instead as being devoted. When you're devoted to something, you are obsessed, and that is all you want to achieve. So instead of trying to force your mind to be disciplined enough to do certain things, instead devote yourself to achieving a goal. And at that point, you are going to do what it takes, no matter what comes up or no matter how long it takes. This really opened up my eyes to so many different things. In fact, I would say that I look at everything way more different now. All right, the next thing we got to focus on is mental health. I'll be honest, I pretty much spent my entire life thinking that I don't need to talk to other people because there's nothing that somebody can tell me that I don't already know, or I just never wanted to talk about my problems because again, I just didn't think anybody can realistically help me with that. That is such a poor way of thinking. So the best advice I can give you is to seek help whenever you feel like you really need it. Therapy is a good example of this. Professional help can be very beneficial. So if you are looking for a good option for this, I would honestly suggest Grow Therapy, which is a sponsor of today's video. Hearing about the mission of Grow Therapy honestly really inspired me because they make professional therapy way easier to obtain, and way more affordable to actually get help. These aren't just cookie cutter therapy plans. Everything is tailored straight towards you and exactly what you're struggling with, down to scheduling, budgeting, and finding the right therapist for you. I feel like at this point, seeking therapy has always been looked at negatively, which is why I like Grow Therapy so much. They are actively trying to change the way therapy is looked at. First of all, it's super easy and quick to schedule an appointment. In fact, you could book an appointment up to 2 days in advance with a therapist that actually understands you. Most clients who use this service pay around $21 per session, sometimes even less depending on your insurance, and they cover over 50 insurances, so I really recommend checking if your insurance covers you. Seriously, if you feel like you need the help, you can scan this QR code to get started or use the first link in the description. Like I said, this can be beneficial for a lot of guys out there. Again, boys, the link's gonna be the first one in the description. All right, another major life decision that I've made is start focusing more on finances. First of all, budgeting has changed my life. Knowing exactly how much money is coming in and how much money you're spending has made the world of a difference in my life. It makes managing bills way less stressful, and it makes sure that I'm really setting myself up for the future. So not only do I track how much money is coming in, I budget to make sure that I'm not overspending, and whatever I have left, I try to invest. I'll be honest, I used to be the guy who was so reckless with money, but my view of money has changed so much recently. Think about it like this. If you look around your room, start looking at items that you bought once and didn't really use. This was clearly a waste of money that could have been way better off investing and hopefully growing into more money. I was 18 years old when I opened my Robinhood account. I didn't really put too much money in there. Even though I really wish that I did, I would have a lot more money saved if I started budgeting way earlier. But another great quote to live by is the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So if you're able to, open up a Robinhood account, start investing. I'm not gonna tell you what to invest on. This is not financial advice. I do allocate some money to some boring investments that are pretty much looked at as surefire ways to make money in the long term. And then some things that are a lot more risky just because I'm only 22 years old. I could afford the risk, but of course this can change. There are some months where I'll deposit money and only put them into things like ETFs. And then there's some months where I'll put them into single stocks, again, just trying to be a little bit more risky and hopefully getting an upside. I've definitely lost some money, but for the most part, I've gained money. So up until this point, I'm so glad that I started doing this. If you don't have a Robinhood account, I'm gonna leave the link in the description. If you sign up and deposit money, we're both gonna get some free stocks. So that's pretty much a win-win. All right, this next thing has made a huge difference in my life, and that is prioritizing sleep. It is so funny nowadays because I get invited to a lot of things, but I quickly say no because I want to be in bed by 10 p.m. Focusing on my sleep has made me way more energized. I love waking up at a good time, full of energy, and just that feeling of being ready to get things done. I love it, and I do not want to trade it for one night out. Now that being said, of course, I live in a big city, so I do have my nights out, but for the most part, I'm in bed by 10 p.m. and that is consistently one of the best decisions that I can make. I'm slowly getting better at this myself, but since I started doing this, I am way more strict on myself, and I've noticed the biggest difference. Now that being said, if you're really ready to lock in and you want to know a video that's going to help you do that, I'll leave that right here for you to watch. And other than that, I'll see you in the next one.